Chapter 31, Servicing Air Brake Systems, Day 1, Video 3, System Tests. Okay, there's a lot of tests that we'll do, overall tests of the brake system that we'll do, and then that will lead us into doing more specifics tests as we break down further the repairs or the um, performance issues we've got with the braking system. So air brake system test, performance test, that it generates the air pressure in a certain amount of time. There's some regulations on that. Air leakage. We've got plenty of air capacity, the compressor capacity, and storage capacity in our air brake system. So a few leaks are fine and they're almost expected. But there's some limits to how much air leakage we can have before that would start affecting the charging system. So there's some rules to do that, doing a leakage test. Oil consumption, how much oil is bypassing from the compressor into the air system. We don't want oil or moisture of any type in the air system. That displaces volume for the air, compressed air, and then it runs on air. It does not run on oil or a liquid. So we have to make sure that we're removing the oil from the system, and that system is working properly. So we've got some tests for doing that. Next to the brake stroke length, or the amount that push rod travels, there is some federal regulations about brake stroke length, how far that push rod travels out of the brake chamber before the brakes apply. So that's another easy test that we're going to do. Parking brake function and emergency brake function are the same system. Parking and emergency are. But there's a little bit different way that we will test to make sure it is each are working as they should to meet those standards. And then some anti-lock braking performance tests that we'll do later on. A lot of these are determined by, again, federal regulations. FMVSS 121 says that we have to have a dual air brake system, so a primary and a secondary system. So there's some tests we'll make sure that those two systems are separated. Very easy test for doing that. I talked about leakage. Again, we've got a large capacity for the air system, and some leaks are fine. But again, if we have a little leak here, a little leak there, a little leak here, on throughout the truck, all that adds up into a system that is leaking too much, right? Easy enough test to do that. So checking our reservoirs, the brake chambers, supply lines, fittings, the gauges, some of the different valves. We want to make sure that air only leaks out or it's exhausted through an exhaust port. So if we're applying brakes or doing some brake functions or just testing the brakes, where those leaks are meant to be exhausted from the system and where they're not. Parking brake function test, again, making sure that those park brakes operate and hold the truck from moving. Then there's a few other tests, for the tractor protection, anti-compounding valves, a little bit more involved tests on doing those. And then looking again to make sure those brake lines and spring brake chambers, reservoirs have a certain capacity, make sure they're not storing water in there. So some real easy tests that we're going to do for those.